The Coffin of Andy and Leyley is a controversial game released in October of 2023 by an independent developer known as... In this video, we will discuss the storyline and showcasing every conversation and path and ending of episodes 1 and 2. And then we will discuss the development of the game and how the reception was taken too far. So, spoilers ahead. The game is a walk and talk adventure with puzzles that feature siblings practicing cannibalism and Satanism. That's the story that made me purchase this as a gift for a friend. They enjoy story-rich games with dark overtones, so I figured this would be perfect. I didn't read any reviews, but during the time of my purchase, it had 1,400 overwhelming positive reviews, which shot up to 14,000 as of writing this. Having my friend tell me the details of the endings made them question what I'm secretly into. So let's get into the details of episode 1. We begin the story with a dream sequence of Andy and Leyley, where we see the siblings squabble. Leyley is emotionally blackmailing her brother into doing something that he clearly does not want. We then wake up to a messy apartment with trash piled up in the corner and a mountain of unpaid bills on the dining table. Ashley, who is starving, searches for anything to eat. She's getting sick of filling her stomach with water and needs sustenance. She ends up finding a can of tomatoes that Andrew hid from her, knowing that it's their last meal available. After arguing with Andrew about dinner, we get a knock on the door with someone unknown saying if we are alive, we should make a noise. We only know that the name on the subtitles reads Warden. Ashley yells at him demanding provisions, and he walks away ignoring her. After dinner, you hear music blaring from the next door neighbor, and Ashley's curiosity peaks and decides to take a look. Andrew reluctantly goes along with her. The game does not shy away from its dark tones, since we see the neighbor is trying to summon a demon in the first 15 minutes of the game. However, he ends up failing miserably. His only reaction is regret, as he says out loud that he should have killed that guy when he had the chance. We don't know who that guy is. Andrew and Ashley head back into their apartment since it's their time they're allowed to watch TV. Here we learn that they are infected with some parasite and that their quarantine has been extended for 2 more weeks. Ashley's sick of the TV and heads to bed, where we see another dream sequence of her and her mother arguing at the front door. She tells Ashley that her and her father aren't infected, so they're leaving you behind to stay at a hotel, and once the siblings are cleared, then they can join them. Then it cuts to a nurse taking samples of their blood to test for parasites, and Andrew asks what happens if the blood results aren't clean. She then ominously say, "You'll find out." Some time goes by in the dream and we see Ashley calling her mother, to which she gets called a liar and get yelled at when she mentioned that they are not being fed. Mom hangs up the phone, but not before she apologized to Ashley and says to not call back. We wake up from the dream with some energy left and decide to clean the house. Andrew says to not overdo it, but after cleaning the floors and doing laundry, Ashley collapses to the floor. A few hours go by and she wakes up with her head in Andrew's lap watching TV. You pass out again and wake up to your brother arguing over the phone. You can't hear the full conversation, but you recognize it's a female voice. She's not allowing Andrew to speak, but he ends the call with a sigh, and Ashley asks who it was. He explains to her that it's his ex-girlfriend, and she takes the time to mock her brother for being dumped while being quarantined. He leaves the room and she passes out after pretending to sleep. After a few hours or days have passed, you wake up to loud banging coming from inside the house. Andrew is trying to kick the door out, but to no avail. The warden, being sick of the knocking, warns you to stop or you won't get any food tonight. The siblings know they won't get food anyway, but Andrew wasn't taking any chances to call a bluff. Later that night, the warden doesn't show up with food. Falling down even more despair, the siblings joke about ways to end their suffering. Ashley suggested the balcony, and Andrew says it's too romantic. And for the first time in this game, Ashley is taken back by his suggestion. She asks how is it too romantic, and he says that their insides will meld into one, and that's his idea of romance. During this conversation, you hear the neighbor blasting his music and hear a loud, disgruntled grumble and decide to take a look. He succeeds in summoning a demon. It asks the cultist what he offers, and the cultist tells the demon that he will give him whatever he wants if he gets him out of the apartment. The malignant spirit looks around and decides to grant the cultist's wish and take away his soul, collapsing his body to the floor. Andrew and Ashley are shocked at what they just saw, and they want to go inside the apartment to check on the cultist. Once you break in and shut the horrible music off, you see if the cultist is alive. The siblings try to figure out what to do and telling anyone would be unbelievable. They broke into a guy's apartment after a demon took his soul. Not very believable from where they stand. And Ashley commented on how much meat he is carrying, referring to his limbs. Andrew is surprised at what his sister just said, and she pressures him to answer if they should eat their neighbor or not. After thinking for a bit, Andrew agrees to eat him. After deciding that you'll butcher the cultists, you have an option to either stay and watch Andrew or find a trash bag to transport the meat. Either way, the limbs will be off and into your freezer. Come dinner time and you choose to eat whatever limb you want, Ashley has no problem devouring the food in front of her. When she looks up and sees her brother struggling to even try, even though he was the one to butcher the body. After you eat another human, you head to bed, and one sleeps more soundly than the other. We have another dream sequence that continues the first one we saw at the beginning of the episode. This time, it goes deeper, and we learn that Leyley wanted Andy to ask a girl to hang out with him. He didn't want to because he knew what her intentions were. Leyley's true colors show when she says she wants to lock the girl in a box to teach her a lesson, to keep herself away from Andy. After she emotionally blackmails him, he agrees, and they meet in an old warehouse. Leyley tells them to play hide and seek, and the girl counts first. As she counts, they find a box to lock her in, and Andy reluctantly helps his sister to find a way to lock it shut with a small wooden peg. The second round, it's only Leyley and the girl. She suggests to hide in the box, and the girl tells Leyley that she has asthma and she'll die if she's in a locked space. Andy finished counting, and she frantically hides in the box so that she allows her boy crush to find her inside. Leyley jumps on top of the box and holds it shut and awaits her brother. Andy tries to convince her to let the girl go, and she begins to cry and tells Andy no one likes her because she's not pretty enough and that no one picks her over anything. And being emotionally manipulative, she gets what she wants, and the girl is locked in the box, and they say they'll come back in the morning. We are awakened by Andrew because he can't sleep, and Ashley lets him sleep in her bed to help with his dark thoughts. After a few hours, we see the siblings in the cultist apartment, thinking of ways to summon the demon, that maybe he can help them escape if they offer something. As they're discussing this, the warden knocks on the door and asks the cultist to make a noise. They panic and come up with a plan. Andrew will distract him from their apartment while Ashley cleans up this crime scene. You cannot escape back to your apartment, so you'll have to hide in the closet. The warden exclaims that this is another suicide and checks the wardrobe to see Ashley kneeling on the bottom of it. In his short-lasting confusion, he tries to mutter any words, but Andrew comes from behind and sticks the cleaver in his neck. The siblings seem unaffected by what just happened. Maybe it's the long quarantine or the fact that they just ate their neighbor, but the opportunity strikes and they find a walkie-talkie and the keys to the apartment. Before leaving, Andrew and Ashley talk, and he tells her she needs to take this to the grave even if he has to put her in it. You walk out the apartment and learn a few things. One of the major things is that you're being starved on purpose. You also learn that only one tenant has been getting food, and that's your hot neighbor downstairs. All the other apartments are barred with notes that read either 2XA or 1XB. Those letters determine who eats and who doesn't. You go to the hot neighbor's apartment to try and help her escape, but she refuses, stating she can do whatever she wants and gets food, so no reason to escape. Then she demands you two to leave. You go back to the cultist apartment, and Andrew instructs Ashley to learn how to summon the demon. He then will go to the hot neighbor and convince her to talk to the guard on the second floor to come up and have some fun with her. There's no room for error. Ashley successfully summons a demon as soon as the guard walks into the apartment, and she offers his soul. The incubus proceeds to give her a trinket and tells her she can see the future if she holds it while she sleeps. Unimpressed with the trinket, the demon tells her he awaits for more souls and leaves. You meet up with your brother again and find that he had killed the neighbor. He tells her that she tried to shoot him with a nail gun, and so he killed her. Ashley doesn't believe him and accuses him of making moves on her, and when she refused, he killed her. The siblings bicker over this with Ashley blocking the door. She then begins calling him Andy, which he hates, and reminds him of the horrible things he's done and how innocent she is, how her hands are clean of all wrongdoing, and tells him that he butchered the cultist, he killed the warden, he killed the neighbor, and even threw the blame on him for locking that girl in the box where she choked to death, and taunts him for crying himself to sleep every night. She rids herself of all blame and says he chose to do it. Ashley begins hitting her brother and reminding him that he chose her over the girl, and Andrew has had enough and and begins to choke her. With no remorse or feeling behind his eyes, she tries to manipulate him again and reminds him that he needs her so he can sleep at night, and he tells her that there are sleeping pills for that. She gives up trying but says she'd like to leave with Andy now, and he lets up and you both escape out of the apartment. During episode 2, we are introduced to the perspective of Andrew alongside Ashley. The details during this are a lot, so let me tell you the things I'll be skipping. There's an achievement for summoning a demon called the Unknown. There's a secret ending where you die on the hands of a hired hitman, and there's a hidden dialogue if you give Ashley a can of soda that tastes terrible. Now we can focus on the main plot with its branches. The first one being is that Ashley has a vision in one of her dreams while holding the trinket. She saw a hitman and comes up with a plan where the siblings will lure the killer to the park, where Ashley throws the warden gun at Andrew and forces him to seek out the hitman. Out of one of the bushes jumps out the hitman, and you're presented with two choices: shoot and shoot. The latter of the options will empty the chambers, resulting in a dialogue path unlocked, and the other allows for an alternative ending. You discover that the hitman was hired to knock the siblings off the map and was paid in full and in advance, and whoever hired him believed he was capable. At this point, no one is coming after Andrew and Ashley. Whoever hired the hitman didn't want any details back, and the building was reported to have burnt down with no survivors. The siblings decide to head to their parents' home and steal any valuables to sell. During this conversation, Ashley and Andrew bicker over the fact that she keeps calling her brother Andy. In his eyes, Andy is a weak and inferior version of himself. He hates him and doesn't want anything to do with him. Ashley pretends to be mad until she passes out and gets summoned to the demon realm. Here we learn that the trinket is out of juice and we must charge it via sacrificing more souls. We then wake up having reached our destination. The siblings make up and Ashley springs up the fact that the trinket is out of power and the demon needs souls to charge it. So she says to sacrifice the parents. Andrew rejects the idea and says that they are there to take some money and leave before getting caught. They break into the parents' home and take note of how fancy it is and how they could have lived with them. During your search for any valuables, you find your death certificate. You've been dead for 3 months. Turns out, your parents had insurance on your lives and they collected the money months ago, which explains their lavish lifestyle. We are then interrupted by the mother, and Andrew walks out to greet her. Ashley isn't amused by this, but the mom allows them to spend the night after an awkward dinner, but demands they sleep separately. Without Ashley to help him sleep, Andrew has his own dream sequence where he is visited by the cultists he butchered, demanding his limbs back. The issue is that we had already eaten one of his limbs, yet we still venture out to find Ashley and hopefully she'll have an answer. Instead, we stumble on Leyley, the kid version of your sister, and she follows you around. We can't progress much without her help and the candle she carries, so she asks for coloring pencils in exchange for it. The pencils are in a room that belongs to a girl named Julia, one of Andrew's exes. Outside of her window is a shadowy figure I could only assume is Ashley stalking her. We have a conversation where we see Julia asking Andrew to not be at Ashley's beck and call, that if he keeps going down this path, then he is only hindering her from growing up and ruining his own relationships. He's clearly hesitant on the matter, but not wanting to upset his girlfriend, he just agrees and tells her not to worry. He then proceeds to ask her to put her hair up just like his sister Ashley. We return to the dream again and find adult Ashley in the wardrobe she hid in from the warden and ask where the missing limb. She tells you that we ate it and I can take any limb lying around. Surrounding Andrew in that room is everyone he killed: the warden, the hired hitman, and the hot neighbor. We return to the cultist with a random limb and a box spawns in, the same box you locked the girl in. Here we return to the warehouse and Leyley kicks the box demanding she wakes up, but there's no response. Andy opens the chest and with their own eyes they see the horror they caused. He shuts the box and crumbles to the floor, wondering how she died. His sister of course isn't bothered by any of this and says that it's natural selection. If you're too weak to live through one night in a locked box, then you weren't meant to live. Andy then explains what will happen, that they'll be separated if they got found out. Only now they are scared of what they did. Meanwhile, Nina, as she coughed and struggled to breathe in her final moments, scratching the lid trying to get it open, breaking her nails in the process, probably regretted ever having a crush on Andy. While Leyley was happy that her brother picked her, he didn't know that he picked Nina to die. They bury Nina in a park and head home. Sometime later, the siblings make a blood pact to never speak about what happened. Okay, so I have a theory here. This is totally separate from the game. As I'm writing this and editing it, I realized that I may have a theory here. In this conversation, she says she asked Julia if she was expecting anyone. Apparently, Nina told her mom that she's going to meet Julia. Andrew dated a girl named Julia. My theory is that he never actually liked Julia, just dated her to keep her around and make sure she doesn't figure out what happened. But that's honestly just a theory though. A game theory. Shout out Matt Pet. We are awakened by Ashley whispering that we should sacrifice the parents. During this, the mother interrupts them by walking in, telling Andrew that she has something to say about Ashley. This is where she proceeds to pull the gun out on her mother and takes her to the basement. If the gun is empty, then Andrew will point it out to Ashley in private. If not, then the game continues as normal. After bringing your father down and tying them both up to a post, Andrew takes the ATM card and goes to withdraw some money and asks Ashley to prepare the summoning circle. To his surprise, there's a withdrawal limit that he asks the mom to remove. This is where the story branches out the most. Ashley says she'll take the card and withdraw the rest of the money. You have an option here to trust Andrew and leave him alone with your parents, or let him go get the money and you stay at home. If you choose not to trust him, then he will be annoyed and return home angry and tells you to hurry up and call the demon. However, if you choose to trust him, then the mother tries talking him out of it. She tells him that it's not his fault, that it's all Ashley's. She apologized to Andrew for leaving him alone to raise his unhinged sister, and that's where she offers Andrew an out. She tells him that he can live with her and leave Ashley to take the fall. She'll even get him a job and he can finally live a normal life. This is where we are presented with yet another choice: to accept your mother's offer or deny it. If you choose to accept, then Andrew will lose every bit of sanity he has left. His eyes will turn cold, emotionless, and becomes resentful of Ashley. When she returns, he yells at her to summon the demon and sacrifice both parents. Then they'll discuss how they'll get rid of the bodies. As you approach them, Andrew noticed that the dad is still breathing, and so is his mom, and it dawns on him. The demon took away their souls, leaving them a husk, human flesh with no spirit, which means that the cultist could have been alive since the demon took his soul too, and the warden they sacrificed as well. In his confusion, and while his thoughts are running at a million miles a minute, the only voice he's able to focus on was not the voice of sanity, it was the voice of his sister calling for his attention. He turns around and sees her sticking the blade in his mother's chest, and the father gets the same treatment. It's almost like a switch flipped in his head, and he did what he did best: chop the bodies, cook some of the meat, and dump the bones in the ocean. Before leaving, Ashley suggests to nap and see if they get caught. Andrew is angry, and they fight before she sleeps, and we are invited to the demon realm, where we are being chased. There's not much to mention here. It's pretty straightforward to the ending, where we see Andrew is chasing us. However, this is where one of the alternative endings happen. If the gun was empty, then Andrew will be sick of Ashley's constant attitude and drama, and he just kills her. If it's not empty, then you are presented with a choice: to either let Andrew have his way, and it's only suggested that he will also take his own life, or you choose to shoot Andrew, where Ashley will lose her mind and empty the gun, kicking and screaming at him how she gets to live and he doesn't. But let's go back to where the story branches. If you choose to reject your mother's offer, then she blames herself for being a bad mother, then accuses you and Ashley of boinking, doing the lambada, cha-cha real smooth now. Andrew reassures her that while she's a bad mom, she didn't fuck up that badly. This is where your sister returns and asks for a kiss, and later tells us she heard what was said. The game continues as normal until the time to take a nap. Andrew suggests to sleep together, holding the trinket to see two visions. Ashley, of course, is being crude, but they end up sleeping in the same bed. We are summoned to the demon realm, and this is where everything is different. We go through puzzles with a green and pink bunny representing Andy and Leyley. At the end of the sequence, you are given two endings. One is called friendship and the other is called lovers. If you choose the friendship ending, then the game continues as normal. Ashley wakes up with Andrew in the other room because he couldn't fall asleep, and you go and get rid of the bodies as normal. However, if you choose the lovers ending, then the game warns you multiple times that what you are choosing is insanity. What I found interesting is that after you have the vision of the siblings in bed together and have that very inappropriate conversation that I will not repeat, you wake up to Andrew flustered and he asks if it will ever happen. Coffin. Playing as Ashley, you're given a choice again. One is called Never, and the other is Never Say Never. If you pick Never, then the ending is normal, but we see a symbol forming on Andrew's hand. But if you pick Never Say Never, then the siblings are more chummy with each other, even playing a game to see who can chuck the parent's skull the furthest. Let's talk about how things went too far. The independent developer behind the game has terminated the majority of their social medias. Back in April of 2023, the Coffin was still being managed by the author alone. Demo was greenlit to release on Steam, and at the time of launch, received positive reviews. From that point on, players were presented with regular updates regarding the development alongside screenshots and random artworks of both Andrew and Ashley. On October 13th, 2023, early access released with episode 1 and 2 being available. Leyley continued to release bug fixes and development notes. On December 10th, 2023, they released their last statement in which they announced Kit9 Studios was taking over publishing rights. The developer decided to isolate themselves from the public eye, removing their profile from itch.io along with the games posted on the platform. From that point on, Leyley's role shrunk to providing artwork and story and blissful silence from detractors, while Kit9 took responsibility for community management, programming, and stated that they won't interfere with the game's plot. You could say that Leyley's isolation was promoted by being picked up by a professional studio, but that's only half of the truth. The other half is more bitter. Following the game's rise in popularity, Leyley was met with harassment and review bombing. On a website called TapTap, people found that the artwork of the game was being ripped off to make a poor granny-like copy. Accusations were levied against the developer, suggesting that their work behind the Coffin was only a measure to self-insert themselves into their own deep, dark fantasies and fulfill sick personal desires. Those were some of the things that the developer had to deal with. The final decisions of leaving the internet occurred after they were doxxed for almost a full day. It would be fair to say that I am not one to shy away from your usual horror themes. I experienced cannibalism titles like The Forest or Until Dawn, and it didn't bother me. That said, the Coffin of Andy and Leyley has managed to make me uncomfortable a couple of times due to the unusual topics in their delivery. Game is focused on presenting two deranged individuals progressing in their toxic relationship, as well as their crooked way of seeing the world through their eyes. Despite the witty sense of humor implemented into dialogues, grotesque-like comedy relief moments, it still focuses on controversial topics and relationship dynamics that are not meant to be glorified, but to disturb the player. Some of you may wonder why the incest scene exists in the first place. In episode 2, the plot branches into different routes, and this is one of them. It's not served on a silver platter to appease some sick fantasies. Players have to actively pursue it. Even at the end, if you do everything right in an attempt to trigger it, the game itself warns you about the questionable nature of what you are about to see. And what you see is not set in stone. It's a warning in a form of a vision, basically admonishing the siblings about the sick nature of their progressing relationship. Do I find the whole incest thing weird? Yes. And that's the whole purpose of it. The story, the artwork, the music, it's all well made and clearly shows that Leyley has a passion for storytelling through the Coffin of Andy and Leyley along with their other games. Games like Jack in a Castle, Better Half, No Good Noel, and this game. The third chapter has already been announced to be the longest one so far, and considering the game's controversial topics, I can only imagine what shenanigans awaits the player. Personally, I won't cast my final judgment before it's all finished. I am probably going to post an update video after I beat the third chapter and either eat my words or add some value to them. So far, I find the game both uncomfortable and fun. Would I advise you to recommend it to your friends? Depends on you, honestly. At least now, after listening to my video, you won't make my mistake, and you're gonna know what it's all about before recommending it or gifting it to someone. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, and special thanks to the artists that you will find their links also in the description for allowing me to use their artwork for the thumbnail. And also thank you to the one friend that I gifted this game to, and they still ended up helping me write this.